I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for July the 15th, 2023. As is always the case in these videos, let's expect your mind alone, and when making decisions that have any tropical cyclones, look towards your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So across the tropics today, we have a few systems to talk about. We are only going to be talking about Talim, which is newly named in the South China Sea, Calvin, and 99W. We're not going to be talking about Dawn and the Atlantic, and 98W can wait. But right now, starting with Talim, this system is struggling a little bit. It has developed a little bit more since yesterday, but what we see now is if you look in the low-level cloud field on the northern side of the convection, you can see very strong winds rotating around, indicating that this is a low-level circulation here, a little bit exposed. So what's happening here is the convection is not able to really wrap up shear, and by up shear I mean in the direction that shear is coming from. And I say shear because you can see, if you look at the northeastern part of this map, you can see some cloud tops of thunderstorms being sheared off to the southwest. It's not a very strong shear, but it is putting some pressure onto the storm from what I can see, and this pressure is maybe just enough to halt some of the wrapping up shear of convection for the system for now. Now this shear is, again, not too strong. Here's the sounding off the GFS. You can see this is the shear. It's really not too strong at all, very weak. And over time, this shear is going to weaken. This flow in general throughout the troposphere is going to become very much more uniform, and we're going to have less than 10 knots of shear at some point. So given enough time, this convection will likely wrap around this low-level center eventually, and once that happens, significant intensification can begin at that point. We just need to see exactly how the low-level structure evolves after that. Now here's a half-say model. This is showing the 250 millibar level, and you can see some of that shear there from this upper level low here. And you can see it weaken as we have the storm come northwest. Now there may be some shear still. I mentioned this yesterday. There might be some shear left with this ridge here aloft, but models are really not showing this being too strong of any shear, and also if the storm is strong enough, the shear would likely be too weak to really have any significant impact. Alongside, the lack of shear here, you can also see the diverging flow on the south side and the western side. So this paints a pretty favorable picture for the lean. Now, as the system comes northwest, we do have still some track uncertainty. The HAPS model is still on the northern side of the guidance envelope, checking this into Hong Kong. We have guidance envelopes stretching from about there to central or southern Hainan. This is generally what we're looking at for track. It's going to be nearly impossible to tell you exactly where the storm's going to go within this entire envelope. That's just something we have not yet perfected yet in forecasts. But regardless of where the system tracks, impacts will still likely be felt along this entire envelope here. And I'll show you a map of that in just a moment. But right now, the general consensus from models seem to be a northwest track into this part of China, just west of Hong Kong and just north of Hainan. And this seems to be agreed upon by models such as the European, the GFS, the ICON, stuff like that. Now here is, again, this is a GFS tracks, and you can see the general consensus on the GFS side of things is into that area that I just marked out there. Same case with the European. This is very zoomed out because we have a lot of ensemble members coming over towards Japan, but you can see the general guidance envelope here into that general region that is marked, but it has some members hinting at still that possibility of tracks towards Hong Kong and perhaps as far south as central or southern Hainan. Now this is a track guidance map, and you can see this is a very widespread overall, and these are some statistical models. A lot of these models will go high regardless of impacts in some of these storms. But in general, if you follow the general guidance envelope, you can see a general mean value about like that, maybe a bit different than what I just drew there, but you can see, at least going off the Saffir-Simpson scale, we could be looking at Category 1 or Category 2 typhoon. if it plays its cards right, we could see the system get a little bit stronger. Now, we've seen models such as the half-say come into agreement with the GFS, making the system less than 960 millibars, which would be a fairly strong typhoon coming into China. The GFS has also backed off a little bit, I should mention, to this. Yesterday, it had gone very much stronger. It's come back on its intensity a little bit, but what these models are painting a picture of is the potential for rapid intensification. And this could be a scenario where you look at a weaker storm like it is right now off the coastline, and a day or two later, you've got a very strong typhoon off the coastline right on your doorstep. This is a very dangerous type of storm, having a storm develop on your doorstep and rapidly intensify, but unfortunately, that seems to be a case that we're having right now. So for those in China, you need to pay very close attention to this. Listen to your local emergency management, listen to your local weather office, and stay tuned to their Japan Meteorological Agency, as they're going to have the latest information on this. Speaking of them, this is their forecast cone, and you can see they're generally taking the guidance envelope for their track forecast. Now, another important note is that this is a track forecast, not an impact cone. You can see the yellow line here. This indicates some of the impacts. This is wider than really any part of this cone over here. And this is a map from the GFS showing the probability of 34 knot winds. This is tropical storm force, and you can see a very wide spread here on areas that could potentially see those impacts from Hong Kong down to Hainan. All right, we're going to quickly talk about Invest 99W east of Talim. Talim is over here. Just east of it is 99W, and this system might have a brief opportunity to become a brief tropical storm as it quickly traverses the southern Japanese islands, and I'll show you this here on the GFS. This is it right here on the model. It's quickly coming northward on the model, and you can see really even the GFS does not show in much development here. Chances don't seem too high at all on this. This is really racing up here, and I can show you just how quick it races. It's there at about Sunday morning, and by Monday morning, it's through the Japanese islands. Now, regardless of impacts, significant impacts may still be felt. You can see some enhanced winds there on the eastern side, and that may also hold some increased rainfall impacts as well. All right, final storm for the day. We're going to talk about Hurricane Calvin, which has in cooler sea surface temperatures, but is still holding on pretty strong. It likely is still a Category 2 hurricane with about 100-mile-per-hour winds as it traverses the eastern Pacific, getting closer to the central Pacific. And if I get a closer or more zoomed out view, rather, you can see all of these just low-level clouds indicating the cooler sea surface temperatures that the system continues to track into. But as the system comes northwestwards, it is forecast to again reach Hawaii, but we're not expecting the system to be very strong. As I've talked about several times, this is a National Hurricane Center forecast cone. You can see that continued weakening here and keeping it a tropical storm as it gets towards Hawaii, which is a difference from yesterday. Regardless, though, if the system is a tropical storm or if it's a remnant low or if it's an open wave, it does not matter. This system will still likely have some adverse impacts, including stronger winds. You can see that here on the HAFS model, with strong winds, potentially 45, maybe 50 miles per hour on the northern side of the system as it comes through. You can also see that on the HAFS-B model as well. In terms of rainfall, you can also see that heavy rainfall coming in on the northern side. And there is some higher terrain here, as a lot of the people in Hawaii would know. And with that onshore flow into mountainous areas on the island, you can get some enhanced rainfall as the system comes through. Now, this is a key messages chart from the National Hurricane Center, and I'll read them out for you. This is Calvin is forecast to move across the Central Pacific Ocean and approach the Hawaiian Islands early next week. It's too early to determine the exact location and magnitude of the potential impacts, given uncertainties in the track, intensity, and structure of Calvin as it approaches the islands. Interested in Hawaii should closely monitor the latest forecast updates. And that's really what I've been telling you over the past several days. So if you're in Hawaii, stay tuned to the National Weather Service in Honolulu, and stay tuned to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center. They're going to be taking over on advisories very soon here. Right now, the National Hurricane Center in Miami are still issuing them, but once it crosses this 140 degrees west of longitude point, that's when the Central Pacific Hurricane Center are going to start issuing advisories on there. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching.